Where are you from originally?
I am from France originally, and at the age of 2, my parents moved to the country of Morocco, which is North Africa. My parents were missionaries, and they felt that it was important to go and to help and develop actually ministry and music in another nation. And so I was raised in Morocco for 10 years. So that's what my childhood was.
Okay. And did you go to college at all?
I did go to college, but that was way later in my life.
Okay. And so did you ever spend time in France as well as Morocco?
Yes, so when I was about 11 years old, my parents moved back to France. And I actually, when I was in Morocco, my parents actually put me into music when I was about 4 years old. Okay. And the way it came about is because both my parents are musicians to start with. But I'll never forget one time, my mother was actually ironing, and I came into the bedroom and I saw this little case with this instrument, which I didn't know what it was. And I said, well, what is that, Mom? And she said, well, that's a violin. And she said, would you like to play the violin? And well, of course, I didn't know what a violin really was, and so she started to play for me, and I thought the sound was so amazing that I decided, okay, let's go. So in Casablanca, which is the capital of Morocco, we have a conservatory which was very, very well known and very well established. We had actually teachers from Russia and really, really a good, well-known conservatory. So they brought me there when I was about 4, and I did a test, and then they accepted me, and I started to play the violin when I was 4. So when we moved to France at the age of 11, I continued to take lessons in the conservatory, and then I took other classes. But it was always it was always part of my life that music was extremely important. Mm-hmm. In fact, I can still remember how many times, every day we had, the record, because in those days you had records, we didn't have CDs. We had a big fat record disc, but every single day there would be music in the house all the mm-hmm. time. And I really believe that when you grow up with that, it becomes part of who you are. And I would probably imagine that that's the story of most major music writers. And in fact, we went to see the Glenn Miller Orchestra recently, and the guy who now is the conductor and travel all around the world, the reason why he became in love with this kind of music and he wanted to be a part of it is because when he was 3-4 years old, that's all he heard at home. Mm-hmm. So as a child, he was already impacted by that kind of music, and so he grew with that idea, saying, one day, that's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. So I truly believe that music is a very, very important tool that can be taught as a young age.
And what other instruments do you play?
I play the piano, I play the violin, and that's about it. I can do 3 chords on the guitar.
Okay. And you started piano also at the same time?
Well, actually, the piano was a little different. I actually started the piano before the violin because it was one of those things that my parents pastored a church in Africa, and somebody had given the piano, and nobody ever played it because we didn't have anybody play the piano. I suppose the story goes down that after I was, one Sunday morning after I was done with the Sunday school, I came down and I started to play with one finger the song I had learned at Sunday school. And people, after church service, everybody was talking, and the girl that had actually taught me that song, she stopped and she told my mother, she said, how can she do this? We just learned that song. So that kind of catapults the concept of, oh, she's got a really, really good ear. And when I went to the conservatory, they did some tests, and they said she's got a great pitch, and put her on the violin because it's a more difficult instrument, and she will continue to develop the piano skill. Well, that's exactly what happened, because it became a hobby, and I would run after school and play the piano all the time. So
all right, so moving on to a couple more questions here. When you were younger or before you came to the U.S., what was your idea of America, and did you have a concept of the American dream?
Okay, I always loved the United States, and the idea was, first of all, I loved the pioneer mentality that says This is the land where everything is possible. And despite the fact that I grew up with a family that was like that, the country, Europe, is by its own nature today, you can only go so far. And so I would listen. In fact, I would say that at home, besides classical music, most of the things that I would listen to was jazz, blues and jazz and R&B, and anything that had a little rhythm to it. And it was mostly American music. Why? Because I really loved it, and we didn't have anything of that sort for me and friends. So yeah, that was quite important.
Okay, and when you came to America, when did you come to America for the first time?
I came the first time in 1989. And the reason I came is because we had a group that came to my city from America. It was called the Celebrant Singers. It was that in 1984. And they came to do a concert in where we lived. And I was so fascinated by a whole bunch of things. One of them, I was fascinated by the quality of the music. I was fascinated by the passion in which these people were singing, and you could tell they were really into it. And I was really attracted to that because I felt that, at least a lot of the friends that I was growing up with who were doing classical music and stuff, somehow it felt like I didn't find that kind of a passion. And to me, that's a lot about America. America is a very intense, passionate country. It's so positive in so many different ways. And so when I listened to that group, it was like, I want to be a part of this. This is the kind of music I want to do. This is the kind of feelings I want to experience in some ways. And so that's what attracted me to the United States, because they actually came to us.
And what do you do now?
So now I have actually been involved with that group of musicians that I met in 1984 for the past 24 years. And my job right now is to actually recruit musicians from all over the world to share the gospel. So we have singers and we have full orchestra. And in some ways, what I saw when I was in my 20s, and the enthusiasm and the vision and the kind of music that I saw, that I was attracted, being American, if you please, is what I do today as a European. And honestly, I don't think that I could do that in Europe today. I really don't. So there is a component about the American dream, if you please, that makes it a little bit easier if you have the passion, if you have the desire, if you have the courage, because that's a big component, to step out of where you come from and come here. And it can be music and it can be anything else. You can leave. I mean, you can experience the American dream, which is that everything is possible.